The next day, the search sunlight filtered in through the dusty blinds as Vanessa stirred. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The softness of the cot, the unfamiliar scent of lemon and old wood, the steady hum of the radiatorate, all felt like a dream. But then she remembered the dress, the rain, the runaway moment. And Daniel. She sat up quickly. The room was empty. The chair where Daniel sat the night before was vacant, the mop bucket gone, the coffee pot cold. A folded blanket lay across the back of a chair with a small, handwritten note. "Take your time, you deserve that much." Dee, she smiled softly. Then her eyes darted to the door. She had to find him. Vanessa stepped out into the hallway, still barefoot, holding her heels like relics. The hotel buzzed with life now. Cleaning staff moved quickly. Bellboys rolled carts. Tourists chatted in the lobby. She approached the front desk. "Hi, I'm looking for a janitor named Daniel," she said. The receptionist frowned. "We don't have anyone on staff by that name." "He helped me last night," Vanessa said. "Tall, salt and pepper hair, walks with a limp." The receptionist tapped the register. "Sorry, that doesn't sound like any of our night staff." Confused, she wandered to the back corridor where she had first seen him. She found the storage closet the same place he had taken her to. It was cleaned and organized, like he had never been there. She felt her heart tighten. Did she imagine it all? Was it some figment of exhaustion and heartbreak? Then a woman in a navy housekeeping uniform walked past, humming softly. Vanessa turned. "Excuse me, do you know a janitor named Daniel?" The woman paused. "Daniel?" Then her eyes lit with understanding. "Oh, you mean Mr. Daniels?" Vanessa blinked. "Mr. Daniels?" The woman chuckled. "Yes, child. That's the boss's son. Doesn't talk much. Walks with a cane. Keeps to himself. Likes working the back end of the property. Doesn't like attention." Vanessa stared, stunned. "The boss's son?" The woman nodded. "Yes, ma'am. He owns part of this hotel chain." "You didn't know?" Vanessa shook her head slowly, piecing it together. A janitor with deep eyes, a man who listened without pride, who never once mentioned who he really was. She whispered to herself, "He never told me, because he didn't want to be seen as anything else." The woman smiled. "That's Daniel for you." Vanessa felt her breath catch. She needed to see him again. A walk back to the garden. It took her 3 days to find him. Vanessa called the hotel repeatedly, left notes with the staff, even searched social media. But Daniel Daniels, the quiet man who had saved her spirit, was like a ghost online. It wasn't until she stopped looking through hotel directories and started asking the cleaning staff that someone gave her a clue. "Check the community garden up on 9th and Braxton," one of the older housekeepers told her. "He goes there sometimes, keeps it tidy, says it brings him peace." Vanessa didn't hesitate. She took the bus that very afternoon, holding her breath the whole way. The garden wasn't large. It sat between 2 old apartment buildings, surrounded by a black iron fence half covered in ivy. Inside, rows of raised beds bloomed with marigolds, cherry tomatoes, mint, and lavender. A wooden bench sat beneath a rusted archway of climbing roses, and there he was, Daniel, bent over a bed of soil, his sleeves rolled up, hands deep in the earth. She watched him for a long moment. He looked peaceful, focused, beautiful in a way she hadn't noticed before, not because of appearance, but because of stillness. Then he looked up. Their eyes met. He didn't smile, not yet, just wiped his hands on a rag and stood slowly. Vanessa stepped inside the gate, closing it behind her. She walked toward him. "You lied to me," she said softly. Daniel tilted his head. "No," he replied. "I just didn't say everything." She folded her arms. "Why didn't you tell me who you were?" He looked down at his shoes. "Because that's not who I am," he said. "It's just what I was born into." She took a step closer. "You listened to me, took care of me, sat with me while I cried, and never once made it about yourself." He looked at her. "That version of you," she paused. "That's the one I needed, not the CEO, not the Daniels on a boardroom door." He smiled then, gently. "Then maybe we both saw each other clearly," he said. She reached into her bag and pulled out something small and colorful. A folded piece of paper, a painting, watercolor, quick and messy, but vibrant. "I painted this yesterday," she said, "for the first time in years." Daniel took it and looked down. It was a garden. This garden, with a crooked man kneeling in the dirt. "It's beautiful," he whispered. "So are you," she said. And for the first time, she meant it. The real wedding weeks passed. Life didn't return to normal for Vanessa because she no longer wanted what normal had been. She moved into a small apartment on the east side of the city, gave away most of her designer dresses, and began volunteering at a local women's shelter. She painted again. She started small, a flower, a child's face, a sunrise. And Daniel, he came by the shelter every Friday afternoon, sometimes with gardening tools, sometimes with hot food for the residents, always with quiet encouragement. He never once brought up their night together. He didn't need to. It lived in the spaces between their conversations, in the ease with which they laughed, in the comfort of shared silences. They weren't dating, not officially, but they were becoming something neither of them had words for yet. One afternoon, after planting a row of tulips in the back courtyard, Daniel stood and said, "You've become someone remarkable, Vanessa." She looked at him, face flushed from the sun. "I think I'm just finally becoming me." He nodded. "That's what makes you remarkable." She took his hand, calloused and strong. "Come to dinner tonight," she said. He smiled, and that night, over pasta and candlelight in her tiny kitchen, she reached across the table and whispered, "I know it's not conventional, but will you marry me?" Daniel blinked. "What?" "You heard me," she said, her voice trembling. "You showed me what real love looks like. I don't need diamonds or cathedrals, I just need you." He was silent for a moment. Then he stood, limped around the table, took both her hands in his. "Only if you promise we can plant a garden instead of throwing rice," he said. Vanessa laughed, cried, nodded, and so they did. Their wedding was small, in the garden, among the marigolds and lavender. With a pastor, 5 friends, and the hum of bees in the background. She wore a sundress, he wore a linen shirt. There were no cameras, no bouquets, no luxury cars, but there was joy. The kind of joy that doesn't need a spotlight to be seen. The ending she never expected. A year passed. Not every day was perfect. Some days, Daniel's leg ached so badly he couldn't walk far. Some days, Vanessa struggled to remember who she was before the world tried to mold her into something else. But every day, every single one, they chose each other. They turned the empty lot beside their apartment building into a full community garden. It was Daniel's dream, and Vanessa made it bloom with her hands and her art. She painted murals along the brick wall. Kids came by after school to help water the flowers. Elders planted herbs and vegetables. Laughter returned to that forgotten corner of the city. Vanessa also began hosting painting classes at the women's shelter. Every canvas, every brushstroke helped her heal a little more. One afternoon, she found Daniel sitting on the bench beneath the climbing roses, holding a sketchbook she'd forgotten she owned. He was flipping through it, stopping at the portrait she had drawn of him. She sat beside him. He looked at her with that same soft gaze he had that night behind the hotel. "I never asked," he said, "but that night you ran. Were you afraid of being alone?" She thought for a moment. "I think I was more afraid of never being truly known," she said, "of living a life that looked perfect but felt empty." He nodded. "And now?" She smiled. "Now I live in color." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Her heart skipped. He opened it inside, a simple silver band. "I want to marry you again," he said. "Every day, in every way. Not because of a moment, but because of the life we're building." Vanessa laughed through tears. "Yes," she whispered, again and again. And as the sun dipped behind the buildings and golden light filtered through the vines, they sat together in the garden, not as a runaway bride and a crippled janitor, but as two souls who had found what the world often forgets to look for: peace, purpose, and a love that sees without needing to change. Reflections. Sometimes the most extraordinary moments begin with the ones we wish had never happened. Vanessa once thought her life would be built on a foundation of wealth, titles, and perfect appearances. But when everything fell apart, she discovered something far greater than status. She discovered truth. And in truth, she found Daniel. She would often think back to that rainy day, the sound of her heels echoing in an empty street, the shame of a ruined wedding. But instead of regret, she now carried a quiet gratitude, because she ran. And in running, she ran into the arms of someone who saw her without the mask, who never asked her to be anyone but herself. And Daniel Hay, too, had hidden for years behind silence and simplicity. But with Vanessa, he became more than just the man in the shadows. He became someone who healed as he helped her grow. Together, they built a life with purpose, not flashy, but full, not loud, but overflowing with meaning. And they never forgot where it started. In a small, dim maintenance room over instant coffee and shared pain. Sometimes, the world expects love to look grand like fireworks or palaces, but sometimes love looks like a folded blanket, a shared laugh, a garden blooming beside a cracked sidewalk, and a man with a limp holding your hand without ever asking you to run again. The end. Thank you for watching this heart-touching story from Folktales Worldwide. If this tale moved you, inspired you, or made you believe in love again, please like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs it today. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful, new, folk-inspired drama. And tell us in the comments, have you ever met someone who changed your life in the most unexpected way? At Folktales Worldwide, every story holds a lesson, and every heart deserves to be seen. WID, subscribe now and discover the stories the world needs to hear.